That way everyone can, any of the information I do share with you does get recorded and get posted as I posted today. Last week I posted 2 of the 4 we did last week webinars. And I will go through the attendee list. If there's any of you attendees that cannot hear me, obviously maybe I won't be able to hear you either, but there is a chat button, and it's like it's a thinking bubble or a word bubble. If you click on that word bubble, it'll give you a chance to send me a message. And one of the messages I just sent to all of you was, all attendees, if you cannot hear me, please call into the audio information on your screen. And the audio information is 641-715-0632 is what you call in, and then hit the access code 175594. If you can hear me, then obviously you've got the audio, but if you can't see the screen, then you need to go down and click on the joinfreeconferencecall.com/J Edgar and follow the prompts to join the meeting. So hopefully by now everyone can hear me and see the screen, and I will go ahead and get us started. As I said, we are being recorded, so any of your questions can be recorded, and then other people can hear the answers to that. Mr. Pettit, have you been able to see the screen yet?
Nope, but I'm working on it.
Okay, well, I don't want to move too far. I want to wait until, you've got that access, because I really appreciate anybody taking the time to call in, and so I don't want to move ahead until we can get everybody somewhat on the same page. Is anyone else having difficulty seeing the screen or hearing me?
I'm having a little bit of difficulty on the screen right now.
You're having difficulty with the screen as well. So what do you see on your screen?
Right now, I'm just on the link of where it is, so I'm on the main page that has the directions on it.
The join the free conference call /J Edgar?
Yes.
So I'm going to plug this into, or this doesn't help you that can't see my screen, but I'll go to it and look at it, and just so I can walk you through.
Okay.
And it might already, because I'm already logged in, I may not be able to see the same thing you see, but I'm going to give it a try.
Okay.
So for mine, and of course it's giving me this information because I am the host, it's giving me a host online meeting. But there should be a button, a colored button, I don't know if it's green or if it's purple, that would say host or join online meeting. And you should just be able to click on that box for join online meeting. The other thing it would have is a calendar where it would have today's webinar listed, and you should be able to join that way as well. Any success there, Mr. Pettit?
I've got to the join meeting part, and it says enter a code.
Oh, enter code, okay. So our access code, try the 1755594, although I think you should be able to just hit join meeting.
Join meeting.
Does that work?
No.
I know you did what you said. I can do it.
For those that are joining or can listen, I'm trying to get 2 of our people who they're on the phone but they can't see. So try 1755594, and then my PIN. Try 7228. That's the PIN number for it.
Mindy, this is Tim McDermott. I joined late. If we can see what you're moving on your screen, is that what we're supposed to be seeing on ours?
Yes. And I'm right now on the free conference call site. I'm going to jump over to the listserv message now. Do you see that, Tim?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so what I want is everybody to be able to see my screen, and I have 2 people that are having a hard time with that. So I'm trying to walk them through what there's, but I don't see the same thing they see, of course, when I log in. Tim, when you joined in, didn't you just hit a button that said join online meeting?
I clicked the link from your listserv, and then
Yes.
while I was doing that, I called in on the phone, and it went.
So it went straight through.
Correct.
Okay. So can you try that again, Mr. Pettit?
I had to
I'll
put my
keep
name
going.
and email in, but.
Don't wait on me because this could take forever.
Well, I don't want to move without, helping people. And now my screen is black because it's moving between things. Okay, so the very first thing on the instructions on the listserv message that I had pulled up for you was log into AET, and you have the choice of either clicking directly on the AET or click here, but there has been some confusion with some people, with some ag teachers. The state FFA degree application is not connected to the national FFA website at all. It is it is in AET and strictly in AET. So I know the national FFA website has been down over the weekend. That should not affect the state degree application at all. It is in AET. So when I go to AET.com, you are going to log in. I log in as a teacher. That is my login, and I log in as our state. And so I'll hit continue. If you're working at your own computer, go ahead and log in to as a teacher, and then you can pull up a student's application if you like. I have a couple that I will be showing you that are example ones that I have. So the next thing you're going to click on is Report. When you click on Report, the very top link called FFA Awards Degree and Application Manager, you're going to click on that. And again, if you are logged in and pull up a student, then you can look at the students as we go along. But on my screen, you should see the National Chapter Award, the Proficiency Application, and then there's 2 state degree applications. There's one state degree application that is dated 12/12/2016 and another one that is dated 12/8/2016. The difference between my 2 examples is the one on 12/8/2016 is a state degree application that is generated from an example student's application that's in the AET record book. So that is one that would have, the application would be fed information from my AET records if I was an all AET student. And then the other application, the one that's dated 12/12/2016, is the application that I have that is not AET record books. It's from my EASY record books. And we know that that's what our applicants are going to be this year, so that is the one we're going to work in today. But I am going to open the one up on 12/8/2016 to show you probably the most important part, and that's the step that several teachers have missed, and I want to make sure that I go through that. First and foremost, this is the instructions page, and I know instructions reading is not a popular thing to do, but it is very helpful. But obviously, we're happy to answer your questions at any time, so don't hesitate to give us a call if you do. But the instructions page is also very helpful. This blue circle, white triangle play button has a quick tutorial video, very helpful, and gets you right to the point of what you need to understand about this state degree application. But and I use that blue tutorial to make sure I was accurately able to answer your questions when going through the state FFA degree. So it's a very helpful tool. Next thing I want to make sure I tell you is number 2 on the instructions is that your pages will automatically be saved as you manipulate through the application. So as you move from one page to the next, and our pages are over here, they're not numbered, they're named, and their titles are over here in this blue, light blue rectangular box to the left-hand side of my screen. So as I move from one page to the next, the little fun little, I call old floppy disk icon will pop up letting you know that it has been saved. For you techies, your JavaScript is enabled, so that is an important piece for that information if you're asked that whenever you're manipulating through for like your school computers. If they give you any kind of trouble, you have that knowledge and information for you. It tells you to read the instructions all the way through, of course. But one thing I also want to share with you is when you use the tab key, that will manipulate you from one cell to the next. So the tab key is well liked and well used in the state degree application. If you are at all familiar with the American FFA degree application, our state degree functions just like that American degree application. Number 6 on the instructions, and I will show it to you on the basic setup page, but that's the page where we put our beginning and our ending date. And then from there, again, if you were using AET, then this application would pull only those dates from your AET records. And for our purposes, we put those dates in, and then that's the information we put in from Easy Records or paper books. One of the things it tells you in instruction number 7, you do start with the cover page, and you basically go in order and put your information in as the pages go along, and then that will fill in the information in the application as you go along. You do not use decimal points, so everything needs to be rounded, only whole numbers, and so I tell students round up, but of course use rounding practices and make sure we don't put any decimal points in the application. This little green question mark in a circle is a question icon, and if you hover over that, it will give you an answer and an example to what it is you're asking. So if this question mark were next to income, it would state the definition of income, and then it would give you examples of income. So the green question mark is very helpful, especially if you have something that says not met or not balanced. You hover over the question mark, and it will give you a reason why it's not. We do have a checklist. The checklist is down here where I'm hovering right now, and on that checklist, to qualify for the application and to get the application to print without saying the words draft, you have to have the checklist say met or yes in all categories. The checklist is very, very helpful tool in helping complete the application. The checklist will let you know if you are missing any information, and again, it won't let you print without saying draft until the checklist says all the items are there. So in my world, I think that's a very helpful tool for all of you and your students to get started on the right page. And then number 12 is the piece that I want to make sure I shared with you. For us to be able to put in our information into the state FFA degree application, we have to click on where it says click here to unlock the application. Once you have unlocked the application, then that allows you to input all the data that you need to from your Easy Record books or your paper books. If you don't click here, then again, it's pulling information from your AET books. And because AET was, the first year we had AET was last year, we will have very few or zero students that will be not clicking here. I mean, everybody's going to click here to unlock. One thing that's important to know is if you go back and forth and you click here to unlock it and then you want to go back and click here to lock it, you will lose data. So don't go back and forth and click that button. Once you've clicked unlock, just leave it unlocked. And now we're ready to start our application. And so now with that, I'm going to go back and start the application that I have already started after I've hit unlock. So now you can see on mine it says click here to lock it. I don't want to lock it. I want to leave it unlocked. And I'm going to my cover page. And our cover page, as you can see, for those of you who are ag teachers on the phone, our cover page is very similar to previous state degree application, but the very first block is all of the information about the student. So their name, their chapter ID number, their FFA member ID number. If by chance their FFA member ID number isn't there, you're just going to click load from FFA, and it should drop their FFA member ID number in that spot. You can see where I put in my area, district, my gender, my parents' name and information, and my parents' occupation. Again, none of the information in this first block is anything new or different from a previous state degree. The next block is the chapter information. You're going to put your complete chapter name, high school address, chapter advisor name, and chapter advisor email address. Next block is the date of birth, year membership began. This is where you check that they have been an FFA member for a continuous active FFA membership for the past 24 months. They've paid their dues, and they received their chapter green hand degree. Where it says chapter FFA degree, I'm going to delete that just to show you what happens a little bit later on the checklist. The last block is, again, All this information is found on a previous state degree application in the front page, and that is the number of years you had in ag class, your GPA, basically your transcript information goes here. And everything on this front page or this cover page needs to be filled out, as it will be how the checklist determines that everything is, all the information is there for you to be able to complete the project, complete the application. Next page, we're going to, any questions on the cover page?
Yeah.
Again, anytime you have a question, don't hesitate to stop me, interrupt me on the phone, or click on the chat box, the little bubble, the little word bubble, and send me a message by typing, and I'll read that question out loud and then send that response to everybody. Mr. Pettit, were you able to see the screen yet?
I am now.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's good. That makes me happy. Okay, so you basically missed the cover page, but I think you can handle that. So, okay, so next we go to the basic setup page. And the basic setup page is where you, now that we've hit unlock, you're going to enter in the beginning date for that student's record book. So I have 9/1/2014. My answer could also be 1/1. You're going to put your beginning date there. Does anybody have any questions about our beginning date? The next thing you're going to do is select your SAE type. And what I have done for previous records is I have selected placement, entrepreneurship, both. What I want to point out to everyone is that depending upon what I check here will determine what page I have over here. So if you'll watch, when I take entrepreneurship off, you see I have fewer pages. I'm going to add entrepreneurship back on, and you'll see that those pages pop back in. So for a student who has just a placement book, they won't have any blank pages. They will only have the pages that are relevant to their SAE. So same way with an entrepreneur student, they won't have any blank pages. They'll only have the pages that are significant to an entrepreneurship book. So that's very helpful, but also kind of confusing in the beginning because you think, where's that page that I haven't had a student fill out before, but you're not missing any pages. It only gives you the pages that you need for your student to complete their SAE. So I've checked both placement and entrepreneur just to be able to show you both those pages as we go along. But regardless of what your student selects, if they select research only, then they'll only get pages that are needed for that SAE. Any questions about that? So then the next thing that we're going to type in, and this information all comes from your white pages of your Easy Record book, from your paper book or Easy Record Online, either one. The white pages, the financial statement pages, pages 6.1 and 6-2, that information on that page or those pages is what goes on this very front page of Basic Setup. So in Basic Setup is the beginning value date. So on 9/1/2014, I put my beginning value of cash on hand, checking, and savings. My ending value date, I put my 12/31/2016. And again, those are from the white pages, 6-1 and 6-2 of the Easy Record Book, paper record book. And then you continue on and you put in your cash value, bond, stock, life insurance. And remember when I told you the green question mark, you're not sure what goes there, you hover over it, it tells you what goes there, and then it gives you an example. Anywhere where there's a green question mark, it will give you that information. And I think that is also a very helpful tool with this application. So once again, all those current assets, non-current inventory, and liabilities all come from white pages, page 6-1, 6-2 of Easy Records. Then the last box down here on the bottom, box number 5, personal cash, income, and expense. This is from the old state degree application. This is page 10A, which was an Illinois page, source of cash gifts. You can read there. It's spanning all years of the application, and it's the list of the total value of cash gifts provided by others and used in your SAE or to support educational experiences that are reflected in this application. So those are cash gifts. Examples would include gifts from your grandparents, or you want a scholarship, anything of that nature would go there. And then sources of cash from ag-related non-SAE earnings. That would be an ag-related work that's not part of your SAE or other personal non-ag work would go there, and that's babysitting, winning an award, selling a personal asset. Personal asset can't have anything to do with the SAE, but that is where those pieces go. And again, it's spanning all the years of your application. The total personal expense and draw, this is where taxes go. So your payroll tax, your income tax, that is where your taxes will go, and that is in 5C. Again, on the old state degree application, that would have been on page 10A. And then this is where you, and then also for taxes, you would also put any other entertainment expenses you may have. You bought a vehicle, you went out on dates, you bought Pokemon cards, silly things like that. And then the last one is where you put your educational expenses. So for any of those students that are freshmen in college and have educational expenses, or even students that are seniors in high school and taking classes somewhere, this is where they would put their tuition and books. And you can put that on this page. You can't put housing there or living expenses, but you can put tuition and books on that expense page. So this is the basic setup page. Are there any questions about the basic setup page?
Mindy, on that
Yes.
page, is there a spot for the personal assets that are in the on 6-1, if they have anything like baseball card collections, that kind of stuff? Is there any place on that?
As I think about it, Tim, no. Well, because that is not really an income. That is an asset that there is value to. But if they spent money on that, no. Your baseball card example, no, there isn't a place for that unless you just counted it as
And for most things, it's not going to be that big of a deal.
Right.
But
you're right.
this and the pages in the record books, it won't match up. If a kid would have that in their
Right,
in their
because
record
they would
book.
pull that. Right, they would have that in the record book listed, and there really isn't a place for. And where would we have listed it before? Let me look in an old record book.
I think on the old application there was a line for non-productive personal assets, I believe.
Current, personal, current.
Lower right-hand corner.
Yes. Yeah, and we are asking those personal expenses, and so I guess it would have to be. I mean, I guess you would have to count it as a source of a cash gift, and it would have to be counted there. I think that'd be the only place you could put that, because it would be personal and it would be a personal expense to them, which we're asking you to give, but we don't have necessarily a place for you to record that. Yeah, it would have to be listed there. So I would list it as a cash gift, because then it's counted as money in hand. And I guess that's how, because we don't have it, they don't list it as an asset. So does that answer your question?
Yes, I think so.
I think so too, but I can't swear by that. Okay, so let's move to additional requirements. If you are familiar with the American degree application, this page is very unique to Illinois. Even if you were to look at other state degree applications through AEP, this is unique to our state. This is where you can basically you pick the drop-down box, yes or no, and you do your candidate has performed 10 procedures of parliamentary law. Candidate has presented a 6-minute speech, participated in planning and completion of a chapter program of activities, been an officer, committee chair, or a member of a chapter committee. This is where you select the star area you would like them to be placed: farmer, placement, ag business, or research. Please note that one of the questions was on the very first webinar, what if the student marks placement, and then when they're in the interview, the group sees that they also are really strong with their entrepreneurship business, and they think they'd be better suited as a star agribusiness candidate. the student, you can switch. The student would have to open the live application, change it to agribusiness, and then reprint the application. But there is nothing wrong with that. I mean, and you wouldn't have to reprint the cover page with the signatures. You just have to reprint the rest of it. So there's still that freedom and flexibility within the section for you to decide what area the student is best placed in STAR. But again, that has to be selected before they print their application or before they complete their application, because it won't let you complete it without having that checked. So try to do your best in figuring out their STAR area before, but there is that flexibility for the section to change that decision. Something else that's very unique to Illinois in the sense very different from the American degree application. In the American degree application, you are not allowed to count entrepreneurship hours, just those hours. You're not allowed to count that towards earning the American FFA degree. However, in Illinois, we do still allow an entrepreneur, a farmer or agribusiness person to use their what we call unpaid hours or their entrepreneurship hours and total up those now amounts and type it in right here. And you'll see later on it has a value in the book. So when the student is keeping their records, the record of experiences, page 5A and 6A, in their Easy Record book, they're going to take the total from each of their years of unpaid or entrepreneurship hours, take those totals, and you're going to plug those numbers in right there. You saw that I changed it from 500 to 200. I want you to pay attention to that number because we will come back to that in a little bit and see how that does influence the application itself. And then the last thing on additional requirements, did you pay or file a tax return? If yes, enter the years that you filed. If no, please explain why. If your parents paid your taxes, all you have to do is write it there. No, my parents paid my taxes in the amount of, I just put $100, recorded as a gift on the basic setup page. And you can see back on basic setup, I put my $100 here in taxes that I say my parents paid. So that is the additional requirements page. Any questions about this page? Okay, so this is my student who is in placement. And a student in placement, they will get a placement and exploratory page like this. And to make an entry on this page, you can see that I have an entry for the year 2014. It says I work for Bonsall-Myers Farms and did some crop scouting, and I made $500. Also in 2016, I had a test job, and I earned $1,000, and I also had 200 unpaid hours. And you can see that my unpaid hours here, my paid hours are there. This is the money I made. How do I make an entry? I go up here and I select my year, and I'm going to make an entry for 2015, and I am going to do Plant Systems again, and I'm going to work for Bonsall-Myers Farms again, even though that employer can be really hard to please. And I'm going to type that I walked beans. And I did walk beans this past summer, which was kind of crazy. I hadn't done that since a child. And my unpaid hours was 0, but my paid hours, I worked 55 hours, and my gross earnings were $550. Nope, I'm going to say I made $1,000 because it was a really sweet deal. Give myself round numbers. I had 0 expenses, and then I click on Add, and that will add the entry in there for me. So every time your student has a placement entity that they work for, you pick the pathway that they worked for, the pathway that it best fits under, and then the employer name, and then the title and the description. And in this description, I think that we were asked this at the beginning of the week, last week when we did a webinar, how much description do we put there? My encouragement to you is the more information you put there, the more complete the application is, and the more complete it is, the better it is to get interview questions from your application. And so I really think it generates a lot of things for them to talk to you about and ask you about, and the more information I think makes your application more complete. We don't right now have, must be a minimum of 50 characters or anything like that as a guideline or as a rule, but that is something that maybe in best practices as we develop a document that makes that gives you suggestions, and maybe that's something that the SAE committee or the FFA board would consider. But at this point, that is open season. However much you want to type there, you can. And then when you hover over the green question mark, it'll tell you to give a description as detailed or as vague as you like. But the more detail you give, the better off it is. So that is the placement and exploratory options. Next, I'm going to go to our entrepreneurship page. Entrepreneurship page looks very similar to the placement page, and as you can see, operates exactly or functions the same way. I pick my year. This year I'm going to pick 2016. I pick my pathway, and I'm going to say Plant Systems. And project name, I'm going to say I work for Bumfumeyer Farms again, or I am Bumfumeyer Farms, and I'm going to say that I had 25 acres of corn. And in my description, that's when I can say my 25 acres of corn, and it was Pioneer 097887. I have no idea the number, so that's totally made up, and I can't type either. So we're all seeing my typing abilities here. That's fun. But I put my number there. I could say that it yielded 227 bushels per acre. I could even say planted on May 2nd. Whatever information you want to put there. As much, again, the description, as much information you want to put is what they'll be, they'll get that information from you, and it's on the application. I encourage American degree candidates, if they're wanting to be the star, the more information is on the application, the stronger it will be, because with American process, of course, the only thing national sees is the actual application. We have the luxury at the state to still see the record books at section, district, and state competition. But the application, the more information, the better it is. So that's how you put in your entrepreneurship information. Then I get into my income and expense statement. And this is where I put in my inventory information. And so your inventory information from your record books comes from, and this is where your expenses will come in. This is where your cash sales will come in. So this comes from pages 11A, 12A, 13A, and 14A. And, actually it's 14B. I'm looking at someone's old record book here in front of me. This is a paper book. So I'm trying to make sure I give you the right numbers. But that information, those pieces of information will plug into each year on this. So this is where you're going to put your closing in current inventories, beginning and current inventories. These are pages, this is page 8A and 8B from the old state degree application. For those teachers that are listening and know that old state degree app, this is page 8A and 8B, also known as the income and expense statement. So this is where you put your cash sales, anything valued, used at home. One of the pieces I always want to make sure I talk about is in here I have value of production transferred to other enterprise, transferred to non-current, bartered, or labor exchanged. So if you have a student who has livestock and they didn't pay for feed, there's no such thing as not paying for feed. Somebody had to pay for the feed, but maybe the student worked for the feed, and so their parents paid for the feed, and the feed cost $100. You put the value of that $100 right there, and then you go down into non-cash expenses transferred, bartered, or exchanged for labor, and you put that $100 right back there. And so it becomes a wash in the book, but that way there is a showing of that feed expense, and so that piece goes there. So anytime a student gets something paid for them for the labor they put in, that is how those pieces of information get entered in there. The next piece with transferred, see on 1F it says transferred to non-current. This is also where the heifer who becomes the cow and she's worth more, this is where the amount that she gets increased in value, let's say she just increases in value by $1,000, she then gets transferred down here to 4B where it says transfer in operations, and you can see I said she increased in value in 1,000, but I only have 200 there, and down here it says it's not balanced. If I change that number to that $1,000 in which I said she increased, it now says balanced. So that is where you can increase the value of that animal. You just have to make sure it's recorded in value of production transferred to another, either to another enterprise or transferred to non-current inventory. And again, those dollars have to match dollar for dollar.
Mindy, not a direct state degree app, but if we do continue down the AET path, those transfers would be the transfers of inventory within AET itself. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. That's a very good question, Tim. So as an application, so that to answer that a little, take that one step further, so an application that fills in directly from AET, you would have numbers in both of those. It would, because you would say when you transfer it from one quote-unquote enterprise to the next enterprise, that transfer of value in the enterprise is that transfer of those dollars. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, you bet. So that's the income and expense statement. Any questions about those pages? Okay, so I'm going to go to the ending current inventory page. These are pages 5, 6, and 7 in the old state degree application. Inventory pages from an old, from Easy Records would be, I believe, 12A and 13A. And this is where you have, again, this is not new information to the state degree application. This is where you would put in your harvested and growing crops, any inventory that you have. And these are, the information is entered in exactly the same once you've entered in and you click add. And I'm actually going to delete that because it will mess up things for me later on. But I just want to show you how the information adds in easily. And when I click delete, it then asks me, are you sure you want to delete this item? And then I hit OK. So it won't let you delete without asking you first, which is also a nice feature. And then this continues on with non-current inventory statement, and this is non-depreciable draft breeding animals. This is depreciable draft breeding animals. This is machinery and equipment. This is land and land improvement. So that is where all of those pieces of information go. The next page I'm going to click on is assets. As you can see, all of these are already filled out. I can't type on, I clicked on it, I cannot type on any one of those lines and be able to input data. It is being fed by other pages. And you say, well, where's the information coming from? And that's what I just did. I clicked on the 0, takes me back to the basic setup page. That's where you input that information. So that's another nice thing, too. Wherever you're clicking on the application, if you have a question mark, it'll take you back to whatever where the information came from. Now I'm going to look at my liabilities, and that came from my basic setup page again. And then we'll go down to our net worth page. Again, all the information is previously put in here. And as you can see, I have this red not balanced. What does that red not balanced mean? Well, the red not balanced means, because if your application values are not accurate, there is a difference in your reported values. If the value is positive, which it wouldn't have parentheses if it was positive, that you may either have overstated your asset values or not reported a liability, or I understated my net income from my SAEs, and it says I need to review my entries. If it's negative, which is parentheses, you may have either understated your asset values, overstated a liability, or overstated my net income. Please review my entries. So if I click on my beginning value, my number's not blue, so I can't click on that. So where is that additional $1,000? So if I go back to my basic setup page and I look at here, I'm like, nope, that's not how much money I set in. I have in checking, savings, all of those numbers are right. Well, where did I go wrong? So I look on my placement. What did I enter? Do you guys remember that I entered in this Bunselmeyer Farms walk beans, earned $1,000? That $1,000 that I entered there, that's money I said I have. Now, nowhere else in the application did I say I still have that money or that I spent that money. I didn't enter it in anywhere else. So I either need to go back to my basic setup page and I need to increase what I have on the end of my project by $1,000, or I need to increase what I spent on taxes or personal fund, or what I spent on my education and put it there, or what I invested in back into my project by $1,000. So because I just randomly added that $1,000 on this placement page, it's saying, wait a minute, that $1,000 is kind of floating out there. What'd you do with it? Did you spend it? Did you invest it? Do you still have it? I have to have one of those three things. So the easy fix, and this is what I'm going to show you that it does go back to balance, is delete that, because I just made it up to be able to show you that I was making an entry. I click delete. I go back to my net worth, and you can see that it says net. This is the biggest difference in this new state degree application. In our previous state degree application, for those teachers on the line, this is line 29 and 28, 28 and 29. There could be a difference in those values. Line 28 could not be less than line 29, but line 29 could be, there could be a difference in between them, and whatever that difference was, you sometimes ask the student to explain that. In this new state degree application, those numbers have to match dollar for dollar. And that is, excuse me, that is a philosophical change or difference for us in record keeping in moving the state degree application into AET, and that is the biggest difference. And so those have to match dollar for dollar. Again, the way to find out why those dollars don't match, go back to your basic setup page and look at how much you have in cash on hand, checking and savings, and how much the student has spent, or if the student has invested. If whatever a student says they have earned in their SAE, they have to show they either still have it all, or they've spent it this way, or they've invested it that way. And that's what it's saying. They have to match dollar for dollar. That is good accounting practices. I'm not saying it's realistic accounting practices, but that is good accounting practices from what I have been told. So that is the big difference on our new state degree application. Are there any questions about that or this page? Okay, the next page I'm going to go to is earned and productively invested, and this is where it's kind of a summary of the student's total SAE earnings, their income from their operations. This, again, is not a page that they can plug information into. This is a page where all the numbers are coming from another place. So their total unpaid hours is back on placement. If you remember, they had 200 hours over here in unpaid, and you can see where that shows up in earned and productively invested. Sorry, I clicked the wrong page. And then as I look further on, I can see that I can earn my state degree one of two ways. I can productively invest $1,000 and earn at least $1,500. I've met on that condition number one. Condition two is you do this, you earn your state degree on your productively invested $1,000, and you have your hours, which the hours have to be at least 750. And again, in Illinois, we do allow you to use those placement hours as well as your entrepreneur hours. Now you can see I haven't met by entrepreneur. I still earn the degree because I met under condition one, but I want to go back and show you additional requirements where you typed in that 200 before. I can change that number to the 500, which I had there before, and then check on earned and productively invested, and now it does say I've met. So it's really important for a student who's trying to earn on hours to make sure that they have put those hours in on that additional requirements page, because those hours will then feed the application later onto this earned and productively invested page. Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay, next thing we're going to go to are activities. The activities are loaded here into the application, and these are your FFA leadership activities, and we are asking FFA leadership activities only. You can see that it's very similar to the application. You pull your year. I have been encouraging everyone to, in front of what activity it is that they attended, type the year in which they attended this event, because then it will list, I think it looks better on the application, and I think when you block all your 2014 items together and 2015 items together and 2016 items together, it's easier to read for the judge's standpoint, and I think it's easier for the student to keep track of that. 2016 state FFA camp is what I'm going to say I attended, and that was at the state level, and I'm going to hit add, and that drops that in there, and it says it was at the state, and that was the year is 2016. And then I can edit or delete that. Anytime you want to edit, I don't know what happened there. Anytime you want to edit, you click on your edit button. Next page is the skills and competencies page. This is information that you had to type in all of this information before, and now you have a drop down that gives you hundreds of choices for what your student skills and competency and knowledge is. Now, the question I had the other day, and I don't have an answer to yet, and it's just simply me communicating that to Roger, and he could have told me. I have 47 emails that I haven't checked yet today, so I could have this answer, but I don't know. Excuse me. Doug Falk asked if we could get a list of what all those are, so you could just look at the list sitting on your desk and not have to always scroll through them. But as you have a student scroll through, you can see that there are many, many, many choices. Develop a marketing plan, develop strategies for marketing plan implementation, merchandise products and services to achieve specific marketing goals. So you're going to pick the pathway. They're listed in alphabetical order. So if you know your student is plant science, you're going to scroll down to the PS options and prepare growing media for use in plant systems. So here are your choices. So you pick your skills and competency, and then they type in the box over here all the skill. And I'm not wanting to waste your time, but type in your information. Up in this box, you can see I tried to fill up the whole box so that you could see what that looks like when we go to a final application. But this is where the skills, competencies, and knowledge go. This is the old page 12 in the old state degree application. These come from, in your Easy Record book, they come from your record of experiences, and they come from your white pages. This is also where you had your safety practices could go in here in the skills and competencies. Skills and tasks learned, safety activities, that's on page 8 of the white pages of the old, I shouldn't say old, of the paper book, Easy Record book. So that's page 8 where these come from. So if your students already have things there, they just have to pick their skills and competency and then write the contribution to success. Any questions about this page? Again, the question that was asked me by Doug Falk is, can I get a list of these? And I don't have a list right now that you can look at, but they are in the pathways, and I'd have to just look a little bit further into a student's book to see where they could see that list for their pathways. But that is where those choices are. Next is community service. And community service enters in just like other data. You have to have 2 different activities, and they have to equal 25 hours for the state FFA degree. And as you can see, I've already met mine because I've worked for a couple places. But I'm going to add another entry in for 2016 just so you can see how the entries go. I'm going to say that I worked for Maroa.
Oh, hey, what's up?
And I was putting flags at cemetery. And it took me 2 hours to do. I hit add. It adds my event. It totals everything up for me at the bottom of the page. It tells me I met that condition. That is community service. Here is our checklist.
Mindy,
So,
can you go back
yeah.
to skills and competencies for a moment, please?
I sure can.
Do you know if those reduce the options based on what kids have put in their journal entries?
Oh, I don't know that answer, Tim. I don't, and that's just because of my lack of use of it so far. Let me write that down, though. Does skills and competencies? That could be. So I guess you're right. As an application is fed directly from AET books, these would be filled out. Yeah, they would be. They are. Yes, they are. Because Tim, I'm going to put a pin in that skills and competencies because I'm going to jump to the other app in a minute after I go finish with this, and then we'll look and see. You're right. That does fill out for it. Yeah. Good thinking, Tim. Thank you. Okay, so back to community service. Any questions with community service? here's the checklist. What I like so much about this checklist is it tells you what you're missing. So you can see the very first thing I'm missing is my member ID number. My application is always going to be missing that because I don't have one. But it says I'm also missing my advisor email. So I click on advisor email, and it takes me to where I need to fill that out. So here is my chapter advisor email. I hit enter. I go to my checklist, and now I'm no longer missing that. Oh, but it tells me I haven't. It says error for my chapter green hand degree. Well, that's not right. So I click on it. It takes me back to where that information is entered. Oh, I received my chapter degree in 2015. I go back to checklist, and now it says met. So the nice thing about the checklist is it tells you if something is missing, so I can fill that out. Years offered in high school last attended. It lists my years, so I know I need 50. And I go back to my checklist. And what else am I missing? And then the other thing is it says not met is my skills and competencies, and because I click on that, I don't have 10 there yet. So the checklist tells us what's missing or what's not met. It tells you if there is an error. So I find the checklist to be very helpful. Again, if this checklist says missing or not met, it will only print with the words draft, draft, draft all the way across the application. What does that look like? It looks like this. You go to print application. You click on generate draft PDF. I will open that up. And this is what your state degree application will look like if it says not met or missing. So once it says, everything says met, then you are good to go and it's ready to print. And it means everything that should be on there is on there. The very first page is all the signature page, and you'll notice that there's no version number down at the signature page. So once you have that signature page printed, print it, get your signatures, and keep it. And keep it nice until you've worked through any other problems your application may have. After you get it to say not draft. So then as you're looking at the rest of the application, as we scroll down, this is your cover page. All your information is there, except I am missing some information here. But this is where the version number begins to come into play. The version number needs to match, needs to be the same on every page. And that is something we're going to ask you to check on the manual checklist that is at the end of this application. The purpose for that is because we want to make sure that you don't print one page to say one thing and another page to say something else, and it's not truly reflective of the application. And so if it says version number, it's the same on every page, then we know that this is truly reflective of that project. And so version numbers do become important on the state degree application. But again, this is the basic, this is the cover page. We go down to the next page is the basic setup page. All your information from basic setup goes here and looks like this. Here is our additional requirements page, again, unique to Illinois. This is where those records of experiences will drop in. And so before, when I said description, the greater the description is, the more information you give us in the description, the more complete and the more full the application actually looks. But this is where that information will drop in, the placement and exploratory experiences. Again, and so Tim's been asking some really good questions about, so when I have a student's AET book, this information will pull from when you do your plan. Is that right? No, your finances. And now I'm speaking on turn. I have to go back and look at AET before I answer that question. But this information pulls directly from AET and drops in here. Some of it will come from, I want to say some of it will come from the journal, but I think most of it will come from your plan. This is your entrepreneurship pages, what they look like. Again, more in the description. The more information is there, the better and more complete your application will be. Here's your inventory pages. If I'm going too fast or if anybody has questions, again, please don't hesitate to stop me. Here is your income and expense summary from your SAE, and this looks very, very similar to that page 8A and 8B, and that is what that is essentially. This is that new page in our state degree application. Assets and liabilities. Here's your final balance sheet. This is the page that tells you if you met the conditions to earn the state degree, and you've got green METs, so you've got to be happy there. This is where those leadership activities come into play, and this is why I say it's important to, in my opinion, this is not a requirement, this is just a suggestion, a best practice, if you will, to have the student put the year in the actual text of the activity, because this, in our state degree application right now, it doesn't block it out by years. And so if you want it to be read, chronologically by years, I would have your student list the year there before they enter in the activity that they did. So those are leadership activities. The next is our skills and competencies. And again, I just typed all this mumbo jumbo on number 2 just so that you could see a full box. But that is what the skills and competencies page will look like, and that whole page will be dedicated to that. The next is community service and how your community service page looks after you've typed in all that information. Here is that checklist. And it looks exactly the same as it does in the application as it does on the printed application. And the final page is the manual checklist. And this is no different than a previous state application, other than we went from 3 pages of a manual checklist to 1 page. The reason for that is because within the application, so many of these items are automated to where you can't complete the application unless it was accurate within the application. So unless these said met, or if it said missing, and it still says draft, you can't print the application. And so now the reason why we went from a 3-page to a 1-page automated manual checklist is because there's a checklist, an automatic check within the application. And so that's why it's fewer pages. Things that you still have to manually check, the first 2 are in regards to the transcript. You do still have to attach a transcript to the original application. And in the transcript, they're checking the GPA, which is 3.5 on 5, 2.5 on a 4, and you check them at the chapter level, and then, of course, the section chair, the section committee checks it at the section level. And then we at the state the transcript comes in with that original application, and we check it at the state as well. Number 2 is the number of hours that the candidate has been in an ag class, again, checked at the chapter level, section level, and state level, all using the transcript as the reference. Has a student attended 12 or more chapter meetings from the last 12 months? The only way to know this, because we don't ask for it on the application anymore, is to look in the records and have that. It would populate from AET onto the student's resume, but you would just look in the records. The teacher knows that. I trust that the teachers in the section trust the teacher at the chapter level. If they say they attended the 12 meetings, they check that. And then, of course, at the state, we have no way of verifying whether it's true or false, so we take your word for it. Number 4, has a student been involved with at least 3 non-FFA activities? This is one that is different. This is not on the state degree application because it is not a constitutional requirement for the state FFA degree. It has been on the checklist for I don't even know how long, many, many moons, and I'm not sure when or why it was added to the checklist. It's not a bad thing to be on the checklist. It's probably a very good thing. It's a sign the student is a true leader. They're involved in other FFA activities. But if you look at our constitutional requirements for the state degree, this is not a constitutional requirement. So we did not put it in the application as a requirement. We put it on the checklist for you to check at the chapter, section, and state level. Now, what if somebody checks no? Can they still earn the state degree? Yes, they can, because, again, it's not a constitutional requirement. I think it's something that's encouraged, so we'd like, but I can't make something a requirement if it's not listed in the Constitution as a requirement. So that's why the 3 non-FFA activities aren't listed in the application itself, but it is still listed here because I think we do want to continue to encourage that. But I also think this is a FFA board discussion, and I think our teachers can chime in to their FFA board members, and we can have some good discussion about that. So number 5, is the agriculture nature of the candidate's SAE evident? If it's not evident, by the time when it gets to state, there are times I have to email a teacher and say, could you please verify or clarify, I should say, the agriculture relevance to this SAE. And then a teacher would send a statement back from that student why they think it's ag-related. You will get that in the interview and, of course, at the chapter and section level, but if we want more at the state level, sometimes occasionally we will ask for that. Number 6, do the business enterprises listed relate to the income and expenses recorded? The only way to know that is to read it and reference it. Again, we can't necessarily automatically catch that in the automated check, so that is a manual check. And that's the same way with 7, 8, and 9, is that those are all within the application. Is the current asset inventory relevant to the SAE? So are there things there that shouldn't be there? Like so in number 9 it says no personal vehicle is an example of something that shouldn't be listed as a non-current asset relevant to the student's SAE. So those all have to be checked manually. Number 10 is about the version numbers. I talked before about the version numbers needing to match. Remember, the version number is at the bottom of each application page except the cover page and the checklist page. Those do have to match. And then number 11 just reminds the teacher to make sure that they have all the signatures that are needed and complete and verified by the teacher. So then you go back up to your cover page to check to make sure, or your signature page to check to make sure all those signatures are there. So that is the new checklist. Again, it is much shorter than previous years, but hopefully addresses all similar questions of previous years and, again, had automated checks within the application. Are there any questions about the state degree application, how to get it to print? Good question we had the other day is, when I generate it to this PDF, can I save it? Absolutely. You can save it on the desktop. You can save it on a flash drive. You can save it to your server. Just know that because it's a PDF, you can't do any work on it, but you can definitely save it, and it can be saved for that student to have. So it becomes yours, but you can't work on it. You only work on it within the AET.com application manager program. So are there any other questions or items that I said I'd get back to and I need to? Just fire away if you have any. And again, if you don't want to ask them out loud, you want to click on the little idea button, chat box, chat away and let me know. But happy to go back and cover anything that we may have missed. So I'm going to look at my attendees list, and I'm going to ask you basically by name if you have any questions. Make sure I have addressed, all of the needs of every caller. I see Mr. Pettit, you're still on the phone, and hopefully still be able to look on the computer. Do you have any questions?
Well, my only question is that on saving this, you say we save it to the PDF and we can't work on it again.
Right.
But if we work on this in 2 or 3 different times, 2 different days,
yeah.
How do I save it?
It automatically saves. So when I'm working within the application, every time I go back in and work on it, it saves that information. So as soon as I log back into it.
Yeah, I was just concerned that if we log back, got off of it and logged back into it, it wants to default to the AET records.
No, it's because especially because you set your date parameters already on the basic setup page, so it has the date parameters, and you have unlocked it from AET. You did the unlock on the cover on this instructions page. So once you've unlocked it from AET and you've put in your date parameters and all your information, it will continue to save that information for you. And even if you were locked to AET still, once you put in your date parameters, it's not going to change unless you change something within that date parameter.
Okay.
So, let's say you do have kids, and they have AET books all the way through, and now they're making entries in, on January 9th. As long as it's January 9th of 2017, any entry they make after December 31st, it isn't being calculated or thrown into the application.
Okay. So we transfer over the easy records, and it saves the information I put in. Yes. And when I log back in, it's not going to default to the blank AET. Okay.
No, it will keep it there. Good question. Any other questions, Mr. Pettit?
No, that should do me.
Okay. And I see Thomas Poole. Do you have any questions?
Not at the moment, but well, I'm actually going to start my state degree application this year. So
okay.
What I do is probably use my summer experiences.
Yes.
Yeah, like I did a program over the summer at the University of Illinois, and then I did another 2-week camp elsewhere with the USDA. So I was thinking about putting those two in, and so I'm going to assume that they're probably go under exploratory or research.
Yes, knowing what your experiences were, Tommy, with that. It's not Jonathan. It's Jonathan. Tommy is who's on the line. Yes, it's Jonathan. I knew your name. I knew your voice. So as long as you have, when you go to basic setup, you're going to pick the research or the exploratory. And basically, what I think I know about yours, it is research-based.
Okay.
Other people on the line, I see we have, I have Terry Branch. Terry, do you have any questions?
No, not right now, but as we have them, I'm sure I'll be in touch.
Okay.
Very informative.
Oh, good. I hope so. And again, any questions, don't hesitate. I learn more as we go through. And Tim McDermott, you've been very good at making me think about more things as well. Tim, I'm assuming you're the 618-939-3455 number?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any other questions?
I am good for now. Thank you.
Okay, and I see Shelby Cooper is on the line. Shelby, do you have any questions?
Not right now, but thank you for hosting this, Mindy.
Yes, absolutely. Again, if you have any other questions, don't hesitate to let us know. We know that this is a learning year and a year where we're trying something new, and so we are going to be patient and open-minded and as helpful as we possibly can be. So with that, I'm going to stop recording us and close out this webinar session. But again, cannot thank you enough for calling in and trying to learn firsthand, and look forward to helping you through the process. Okay, everybody, thanks so much. Have a great day.